We talked a little bit about VMS earlier in the customer panel. We completely redesigned that interface to make it much easier to see what's important. We also added guidance. So when we see a vulnerability, we rate it and we tell you if you need to act now. If it's something that's being actively exploited, it's automatable, those sort of things based on actual threat intelligence. We have also added 2 new reporting frameworks, which for people in this room probably don't mean anything because they are both out of a country on another hemisphere. So not as interesting probably. Made improvements to baseline and make the baselining process simpler. We're going to continue to attack that because we know you guys spend a lot of time in baselining and approvals, things like that. How many of you out here use FoxGuard? I know there's only a few, but okay, so one of the things that we've heard about users of FoxGuard is FoxGuard's pricing, and this is, okay, I'm going to sound like I'm making fun of them, but I'm not. It's punitive. It's per asset, so it can be quite expensive. We added, based on the feedback from last year's user conference, the ability to select which groups get exported. So if you only want to have SIP assets exported to FoxGuard, some customers were actually manually changing the output in order to limit how much they had to spend with FoxGuard on the licensing. We now just say you just throw it in whatever group you want, select the groups on the export, and it saves you a lot of time. We've also created self-contained agents. So what that means is the agents now for 8.1 don't have dependencies. They are just a little blob that goes on whatever system you're putting them on, and you don't have to worry about updating them and that sort of the thing. We did a lot of numerous UX improvements, performance enhancements. We're continuing to improve the reports, how quickly they're generated, all those sort of things. The install actually sped up, but that's one thing you're only going to hopefully do once. So next slide, please. Okay, 8.2. So first of all, big news. It is CI. So that's pretty exciting. And so we have customers that are able to put it into a QA environment and play with it. It's not for production use. We let it sit there for a few weeks just in case those customers find anything that we didn't internally. And then we will go to GA, generally available, and then it is approved for production use. You can download it off of our support website, install it yourself, or use our services people to help get through that process and up to there. So we are very close to generally available for 8.2, but we made a big step. What you're going to see in 8.2, we redesigned the risk overview. One of the things I'll talk about tomorrow is one of our pillars of our strategy is scale. And so we have a very scalable risk overview. We've got updated calculations that are much more flexible, and you guys have little dials you can tweak to deal with it. We refreshed the asset admin screen. We know that is the screen that people probably spend the most amount of time in, but so we refreshed it, made it a little bit more visually appealing, made it a little bit easier to work around in. We also, for those of you, especially as low assets start coming on board, we're getting more and more requests for support for both data diodes between the IDC and the IDCM, as well as completely disconnected IDCs. The disconnected ones are completely new workflow and pretty interesting. So we've got support from that. Because of VMware being purchased, their pricing has changed. So we've gotten a lot of requests for Nutanix support. We actually did have customers running on Nutanix. Now it is officially supported within the product. We've also, because of our government contracts that Alex referred to this morning, we've added STIG hardening. And so STIG is just a set of standards put forward by the government that says we lock it down. And so we don't just do that, lock it down extra specially. And we don't just do that for the government installations. We decided there's value for everybody, and it doesn't impact the performance or anything for you. It's just a more secure product now. And so we've done that, and we're getting the official paperwork from the government to have that supported. You guys in the audience probably don't care about that, except for the fact that it is now even more secure than it was before. And yet again, more UX and performance enhancements. And with that all being said, I think that's it for my slides. Oh, I forgot a very important piece. We have been actively pursuing and adding new protocols within it. And what this does is this helps us with our passive monitoring. So since 8.0, we've added Profinet, the Yokogawa DCSs, the Honeywell DCSs, Emerson DCSs, BSAP, and then IEC 104, 101. And so this simply allows more assets to be discovered when you use those protocols. And as people need protocols, that's where let us know. Let myself, Thomas, Marianne know if there are protocols you're using in your network. We have a lot of support, a lot of devices, and it's exactly the same as adding new device support. Go into support saying, I've got this protocol. Let us know. Next slide. Now, I'm going to hand it over to Greg, and who's going to go through a more detailed demonstration of everything. Greg.
Thanks. Quick show of hands while I plug things in and make the magic happen. How many of you are still running 7.5.1, 751? Anybody running anything older than 751? Excellent. How many of you are running 8.0? Great. 8.1? Super. And 8.2 is just CI now, so we won't bother with that. That's great. Thanks. So for those of you 7.5. Whatever, you remember the wheel with the risk. We're still looking at risk overall as a fundamental feature within Industrial Defender. And we've been talking about risk for half the day today, right? Risk is critical. Risk is important. How do you measure it? How do you display it in a meaningful way? And so we've added some new display capabilities. This is the new homepage. The new homepage is focusing on risk, on some things that I'm just going to point out. And I'm mostly just going to focus on the new stuff that since 7.5.1, right? If you want a full demo, come and see me. I'll give you a full demo of everything, but it would be longer than the amount of time we have here. On the left-hand side, you'll see the filter assets. This is new, or the idea here is new, and you will see this sporadically throughout the UI, basically. It's a very self-populating way of filtering your devices. So I will, what this view is showing you is a matrix of all my devices and where they stand in an overall risk scoring platform. So the higher up and the more to the right, the riskier, basically. We're looking at technical risk and operational risk, and I'll explain that in just a minute. The dots are the individual assets. So as I hover over one, you'll see the details. If my VPN is still good, it is. And when I have more than one device in a cluster, I can click on it and it will break down the 3 entries on a scaled up version, I guess you could say, graph.
Is this based off like the default risk profile? Like, are there any changes to those? Because I know in the past there was like some wonky bugs with some of like the agentless state data only risk profile versus like the default profile. So is this all based off like the default profile?
To start with, it's based off the default profile, but you have a lot of control over that. You see where it says manage risk profiles in the top right? So we have, I'm not going to yell at the mic. If I click on this, these are the variables that you have available to you to play with. How do I score this thing? What's important to me? So the default risk profile right here, I have 37 devices under that one risk profile. You could create new ones. You can mix and match different devices for different profiles. But in the end, these are the categories of the risk profiles, like vulnerabilities. This is like a sheer number of vulnerabilities. That is just one parameter that's being used when it comes to the formula of calculating a risk score. CVSS score, are there any CISA publications, alerts, advisories, etc., urgency, etc., changes detected, security events that are in the environment specific to that one device. Now, there's another element. So that's how you can score the different categories. What makes a high, what makes a low, what makes medium, that kind of thing. The other element are what we call risk factors. And risk factors let you add, I don't know what the appropriate word is here, but basically you can make this intelligence on the parameters of the devices themselves. So I have some in here that I've already been filled out, but I could say basically any high critical device, I'm going to add a weight to the formula for that device or any device that has criticality set to high. And so I'm increasing the score by 1. I can do 1, 2, or 3. Now, for a low risk device, I could do the opposite. I could actually decrease the weight 1, 2, or 3. So maybe it's a desktop that's really just a doorstop and nobody's actually using it and it's not plugged in anywhere, right? So that's low. But this is all built on, like this one is built on the admin properties. So in the admin properties, everyone's familiar with that. These are the extraneous, non-automatically, you can't automatically capture this data basically. Like what's the physical address? Who's the administrator for that device? What's this phone number? What's his email address? These different property or elements or attributes are admin properties, and criticality is one of those. All right, so this matrix is new. And you can see basically information there. I got a risk score of 40 for AV demo. Shouldn't have hovered over another one. And then I can come in here and I can actually filter down to whatever it is I'm wanting. Maybe I just want to look at one particular site. So now I'm only looking at far fewer number of different devices. Any questions so far, or any more questions? Risk is important to us. Another one is our traditional risk card. So this kind of breaks it down specific to each category, let's call it, of elements. So if you remember when we were looking at the risk profile, there was the vulnerability section, the security section, things like that. This is what all of that is. So here's my vulnerability piece from that risk profile. And based on this, I have 30 that are good to go. They're green, 7 that are medium risk, and 0 high risk, basically, right? CVSS score, etc., security events, changes that are detected in the environment, etc. So all of these parameters, attributes, scores are going to be calculated in that formula to give you that overarching risk score for each and every device. And then last but not least is table. We're looking at the same data. We're looking at the same devices. We're just tossing and turning the way that we're looking at each device, the parameters of it. So in here, this looks very similar to asset administration, right? It's that typical table grid view of the devices, etc. Except now you can see the risk score element. We have a column specifically to that. And the trend. This is just a demo environment, so there's not much change here. But if there's changes in the trend over the past 7 days, you would see it going up or going down or per device, which is great. So this is a major UI shift for us, improvement, to give you the better visibility into risk, overarching risk for the entire environment, as well as drilling down into seeing your individual device risk profiles as well. All right. Any questions? Okay. If I move over to asset administration, this is the old school, what used to be our main driver, the main area. There are now multiple ways of looking at the information. Again, operational, administrative, and compliance elements. Same data, just kind of swizzled for each lens that you happen to be looking through. If you want to look at the operational piece, this looks more familiar to you with your asset admin scope of view, right? So you get your individual endpoint device, location, reachability. I see now, instead of a red exclamation point, which never really said anything, you just had to know that a red exclamation point meant an exception had been detected or a change has been detected. Now we're just telling you, yeah, there are exceptions for this particular device and this particular device. Vulnerability urgency, when we get to the Do I need to be going this fast? I don't think so. So vulnerability management, which we'll spend a fair amount of time on because it's significant. As Jason was explaining earlier, we certainly give you the 10,000 vulnerabilities that apply to your environment, but we give you extra context, and there's a lot of value in that extra context. We're using all kinds of calculations and heuristics and AI, frankly, to determine is that vulnerability known to be exploited in the wild? Is it easily scriptable or is it not easily scriptable? Do you have to have physical access? These are elements that each CVE tells you, but we're able to get extra context to then give you a guided roadmap, so to speak, of priorities when it comes to vulnerabilities. So of these 10,000 vulnerabilities, start with these 50, right? These 50 vulnerabilities, and I'm making numbers up, by the way. You'll see when we get to the area. Start with these 50. These 50 are the most critical and give you the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to mitigation. And that's what the vulnerability urgency column is. Act now is that start here kind of a place. All right. Administrative, same idea here. My mouse isn't happening. And then compliance, as you can imagine, same information basically, but you get more, like we're showing you the collection profile here. How are we collecting the data from this device? Does it have exceptions or not, etc. And you can see we have these tile. Yes, sir.
Sorry, Greg, this might be a little generalized. This also covering the last item that you spoke on for risk profiles. And then I do see on top over here that you have like the various values on assets and like the 18 to 808. So when it comes to risk profiles and even vulnerabilities and their risk scores, two-part question. First one is generally have these changes also been made available through API? The second one is when I looked at your vulnerability screen, I did see values for risk, and then going back to your risk matrix, and how you said now you guys can provide a list of at least where to start. Is that based on the risk scoring and risk profile? Or are there, I guess, how do you determine what that set is that we should focus on first?
Right. So everyone's, first let me, because I don't think everybody understands the vulnerability stuff at all. So let me first explain how we do the vulnerability thing, because it's very unusual, unique, I guess, in the industry is the way to explain it. So in our solution, here's what we don't do. We don't scan the network. We're not a Qualys or an Expose or any of those guys. Instead, what we do is we take the information that we've already been collecting, and we have very recent, as of today, data for all of your devices. And we look at the software category. You know, you've got asset details, software, user accounts, open ports, et cetera, et cetera. We look at the software category and we build a JSON file of the software category for every device in your environment. And so it's really just a list: software version, firmware, because firmware goes in the software category, firmware version, software version, et cetera, et cetera. And then we zip it up. It's not password encrypted. You're welcome to open it up. You're welcome to take stuff out of it if you want to. But it's just a flat file, well, a JSON file of software version, firmware version. You then take that file and you upload it to our support portal. And that's where we have processes, automated processes that kick in to basically do all the work about CPEs and CVEs. And then that's when the real work starts happening. We go to other sources as well. We check the KEV list, which is the known to be exploited vulnerabilities in the wild. And then we analyze the CVE itself to determine, is this an easily scriptable vulnerability or is it not? Is it more complicated than that? And that is what is calculated in our, this is probably not the technical term, but our answer file that you would then download. And then when you download that file, you gave us a list of software and versions. We give you a list of software and the CVEs associated with each software firmware package. So when you import that file, your server, your IDCM, sees the software version and says, oh, I know what devices have that software version. And it makes the linkage between the CVE and the software to the device itself. So there are no device information ever leaves the premise. That's the win here, right? It's just software and firmware version information, and that's it. So when you import it, that's when the work is being done, the processing to link the devices to the CVEs. But that, depends on how many devices you have, of course, but it's like a 5-minute, 10-minute process. Doesn't take that much time. And then you can see this device has 3,000 vulnerabilities, etc. Short answer is yes. This is our API documentation for those of you. We use Swagger for our API documentation. And in here, you can see all the different vulnerability queries that you can run to very easily get a list of all the CVEs for all of your assets. And it'll just give you all of that data for every device. Or if you give us a UUID, we'll just give you a vulnerability, all the CVEs for that one UUID, or, any number of things, number of ways. So much so you can build your own UI to display this kind of information. It's really, the API is very thorough. I love the API. Good job. All right. Yes, sir.
Did the filtering change on there in terms of, you used to be able to pull up like the separate filters and drill into like group, asset type and all that? Is that along the left here now?
Yeah, so it's on the left here now instead of where it was. We also, you have your simple search, basically, filter capability here as well. I don't know. There you go. I just typed Windows and boom, it's going through the entire list of every attribute on every device and giving me a list of anything that has the word Windows in it. But over here on the left-hand side, these are more self-populating filters, right? So it's not like what you see here for me in my demo environment may not be the filters that pop up in your environment. But that's the idea, is we want to make it easy to find whatever it is you're looking for. That's right. All right. Still, any other questions? Great. STIG hardening, there's nothing to show really. It's just security technical implementation guides. We are now compliant with those as much as we can be. And we were already a hardened environment application or appliance. I think everyone knew that we were a hardened appliance, but now we're very specifically hardened to the DISA STIG formulation. I don't know what the word is. All right, so that's done. Another thing that we've added now is UDP TCP port discovery now. So this was a request of one of our newer customers. So we could now, this was not something that we used to do at all. I think we had a UDP one.
We had a TCP one.
We had a TCP one. Yeah. So we added UDP, and now you can do a sweep basically to help discover your different devices, but it's a purely manual thing. It doesn't happen automatically. So if you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it because it doesn't happen by default in any way. But if it is something that you want, it's easy to set up and easy to perform for your discovery. Okay. Let's look at vulnerabilities. I've been talking about it. Can you guys hear me if I walk around? Is it all right? Okay. So this is probably new to most of you, but not all of you. This is showing us, you can see at the very top, export software inventory. That's the button that generates that JSON file and zips it up. Don't bother unzipping it and sending the unzip to us. Just send us the zip file. We're big boys and girls. We can unzip it. It's fine. And then once you get your answer file, Like that's all automated. You just push the button, you get a zip file. Give us the zip. We're in business. We'll then give you a zip file on response, and you will import that package. And then that's where the magic happens, the correlation between the device and the vulnerabilities, et cetera. So in this most recent package, which was done this morning, and I'll explain the graph in a minute, 4,800 total vulnerabilities. So 4,801 vulnerabilities. 110 of them should be the most critical, act now, then hit the 1116, then hit the 1027, and then whatever's left over. But you're going through the sense of priorities from most important to least important. And that doesn't really sound right, but most significant to less significant. The chart here is pretty straightforward. There's a yellow vertical bar that nobody can see, but it looks great on the monitor. This is whenever you do an export import. So these are the points in time where the check took place. Okay. And then the lines are pretty self-explanatory. The red line is the number of vulnerabilities. Except it just went up. The purple is the number of vulnerable assets over time, and the green are the number of mitigated CVEs, so the number of CVEs that have been taken care of, right? And taking care of CVEs, there's a couple of different ways to do it. So when we give you, I'll show you.
Greg, while you're doing that, I'm going to add one thing. This chart is a direct result of last year's user conference. One of the problems we heard from you guys is I need to prove to management that I'm doing something.
Right.
I know it sounds silly, but when you say it that way, but essentially most people nod their heads, yes, I understand that. And so this was another one of those things that we took direct from user feedback last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is a more current, this is 8.1, right? So in 8.1, which my team, we keep this pretty regular cadence. We keep it up to date. And so the data, the graphs are more meaningful on this version. Mitigated CVEs, whenever we tell you about a vulnerability, we will tell you if there are any patches that mitigate that vulnerability, and we'll give you the list of the patches that fix the glitch. Let me go back to 8.2. So if I look at the most important vulnerabilities here, this is the 110, and I can view it by asset. So I've got some OT devices with several vulnerabilities, and then Windows down here with a gazillion. So if I have a vulnerability that 10 patches can mitigate, and I say, okay, that's important, it's critical, we're going to deploy one of those patches. So I deploy that patch to 20 devices today. Tomorrow morning, if you remember, we monitor patches on the endpoint as well. So tomorrow morning, when we do our data collection, we will see, oh, somebody deployed patch KB123 on these 20 devices. Our solution already knows that that patch fixes that vulnerability, so we automatically remove the vulnerability from those 20 machines. You don't have to do anything. So it keeps itself up to date from a patching perspective. You also, with our product, have the ability to manually mitigate way up there at the top where it says mitigate, and that gives you the ability to manually document your mitigation. Maybe you closed a port on the firewall. Maybe it's at level 1 in the Purdue model. Maybe the OEM told you, don't worry about it. You don't have to, this is not appropriate to you, or it doesn't apply to your environment. Great. Take that email and put it in the mitigation documentation. So now you have it, you have the evidence that the OEM gave you the get out of jail free card, basically. And when you manually mitigate the vulnerability, that also counts as a green line there. Okay, so if we look at, we have several devices. This is a manual mitigation here. That's just what it looks like. If I clicked on it, you can see the information, and then I could manually mitigate it as well. So if I look at this Rockwell 1756, I've got 6 vulnerabilities. Here are the 6 vulnerabilities. You get some relevant contextual data about the 6 vulnerabilities. Some of them are pretty high, 9.8. So here are the patches. There are no patches on a PLC, right? You just update the firmware basically. But if I view the details for one of those, you get the National Vulnerability Database type feedback, right? Here's a description of the vulnerability. You get your metrics, 9.8. You can access this via the network. You don't have to be on the box to do it. It's not complicated. In other words, it's easy, probably easily scriptable as well. You don't need to be authenticated, etc. So the assessment makes it act now, basically. So that makes it a highest of priority issue. If there are other mitigation techniques that we can determine, then we will document those in here for you. And if there are even workarounds, we'll give you any workarounds that we were able to discover. We'll tell you about those as well. We'll also tell you all the different devices that may have this one vulnerability and where each device is located. So I only have 2 devices with this vulnerability, but they're both in the same spot, which is good. It is a vulnerability in the Rockwell firmware version 5.8, basically. And there is a CISA advisory about this one from back in 23. Yes, sir.
I guess the process is we generate the package of all of our software, we ship it to you, and then we get a list of vulnerabilities. Let's say the next week vulnerabilities come out on I haven't changed any of my software, but next week a new vulnerability comes out.
Yes.
Do we only get that if we send you the list of software again, and so that the process is we just go around?
Exactly right. That's it. Yeah. So we recommend at least once a month to do this exchange, precisely because of that reason, right? New vulnerabilities are coming out every day, all the time. You want to keep up with those. Once it's in our system, it pretty much self-maintains, but we don't know what we don't know today, right? So tomorrow something's going to come up, and that's how you should take care of it.
Our assumption, when you send us that software inventory and operating system inventory, we analyze it, we produce an answer file, send it back to you, then we erase it. It's gone, right? So we don't just hang on to everybody's software inventory, because that's generally understood to be the requirement. Even though it doesn't have asset information in there, probably don't want us to just do stuff with that, hang on to it. So we don't. However, you're right. If we just hung on to it and we just every day produced an answer file that you could get, well, you could just get updated information without doing the whole exchange. That's a possible workflow we can do. So if you have that, if that sounds useful to you, like, hey, I don't want to do the whole process, I just want to get it from you from time to time, and I'll tell you when it changes, I'll send you a new one, but until I do, I just want to have a new one updated, let us know.
Yeah.
Because our assumption is, yeah, you probably don't want us to do that, have that capability, but if you do, and that's something you can work with, please let us know.
Okay, we'll do. Thank you.
This has evolved and changed a bit over time as well. For those of you who have 8.1 or 8.0, it's close, but it's not exactly the same. So let me explain what we're looking at first of all. These are what we've always called our standard reports, right? I can come in here and get an asset inventory, bada boom, bada bing, no problem. You just pick the report, and then over on the right, it will ask me for, what devices do you want to run the report from, and what, like all my Windows machines, and I want all my Windows machines in one location, maybe site A, et cetera, et cetera. Do I want a PDF? Do I want a spreadsheet? Do I want a whatever? And then it will generate the report. Across the top, these are the different compliance frameworks that we now support with as of 8.2. And this is an ever increasing list. There's no shortage of compliance frameworks out there. So, AES CSF, this is actually Australia's version of NERC-CIP, basically. So they're coming up on board with NERC-CIP-esque compliance needs. 62443 has always been there. NERC-CIP, of course, is a big one. So once you come in here and you say, all right, I want to run my NERC-CIP 10 standard baseline, and I'm going to do all my it pre-populates. That's nice. That's great. And then I'll just select all. And I'll do that time, and a PDF looks great. So when I generate the report, for those of you with 7.5, you would get the report right here, right now, that kind of thing. It's a little different now. So now the report, basically, all the definition, the report definition has been submitted to a queue, right? A reporting message queue. And so now you would come in here and go to the report center. And the report center, in here, you will see the NERC SIP standard baseline report. Yeah, you can see the number of reports is different between 8.1 and 8.2 even. Just trying to show you the fastest one. So this is not the one I just created just now. This is completely separate. In fact, this is from May 28th. Right? So in here, I could get that PDF right here, right now. But another nice feature is all of the older reports are kept in this report center as well. So if I remember I did a report 3 days ago and it gave me what I needed, but I deleted it or I didn't print it out or whatever, you have all the stuff, all those reports are available here in the report center for you to re-download, review, all that good stuff. All right, just to kind of keep going so that you can see a couple of other changes in the system. For those of you that remember when we detect exceptions and you want to approve the exceptions, it's a multi-step process to approve that. And some people love that and some people don't. You have options now because we're all about options. So in here, you still get the same visibility, the same level of detail of all the changes that we detect. But once you choose to accept, excuse me, you now have this checkbox. So this checkbox is basically going to immediately bypass a whole first draft step, if you remember the draft step, and move this into the working draft. And so now we are in the submitted phase, and all I have to do is promote. Okay. So it used to be there were, I think, 3 phases you had to go through. Now you have to approve it. Well, you had to, approve it with that submit working draft, and that places it here under submitted. And you can certainly review it and take a look at everything and make sure you're happy with it before you promote it. But ultimately, somebody promotes it. Okay, there was that. And then I guess last but not least, bulk move. I think this is new. For those of you, when there's a big maintenance window and there's a whole bunch of changes detected and everything has a red exclamation point, you can now use this. We've improved the bulk move feature within the system. So it's much easier now to move all the changes from draft to working to submitted to promoted. You do them all here. And you can see all that information. Does anyone here use the bulk? Okay. Yeah, it's a big lifesaver if you have a large number of devices for sure. All right, great. 8.2 is great. You're going to love it.